What's up, everybody? My name is Brett. Before I found Cafe RE, my drinking had spiraled out of control to where I was hiding bottles any and everywhere I could because my body and mind told me I needed alcohol in my system 24/7. And I'd accepted my fate that this is just how life will be till the day that I died, alone and a slave to alcohol. But since joining Cafe RE, I quickly learned that I was far from alone. Bits and pieces of my story were echoed 100 times over from fellow members, and it's through this community and the genuine and authentic connections that I've made here that I've been able to get and stay sober for over 3 years. Cafe RE has literally given me my life back. So head on over to www.cafe-re.org and use the code CONNECT for your first month free. Again, that's www.cafe-re.org and use the code CONNECT for your first month free. You'll be glad you did.
Recovery Elevator episode 598.
I don't need a rock bottom to know that, okay, I'm actually done and I want a better life and I want to live more authentically.
Welcome to the Recovery Elevator podcast. My name is Paul, and this is how we quit. On today's episode, we have Amy. She's 43 years old from Santa Ynez, California, and she took her last drink of alcohol on May 25th of this year, 2026. Great job, Amy. All right, let's do this. Everyone struggles with something, and that something for you probably is or was alcohol. My message for you today isn't how to lessen that struggle. Instead, I want you to accept it, own it, and embrace it. Here's why. With most ailments, diseases, or health struggles, your ideal outcome is to get back to where you were, to return to your original state. Think with a cancer diagnosis. The goal is usually to get you back to how you were before the illness took hold. With type 1 diabetes, your pancreas doesn't get stronger. You're going to be managing that the rest of your life, most likely. With MS, lupus, spinal cord injuries, rheumatoid arthritis, and polio, you're fighting to just get back to zero, and most of the times, that's even not a possibility. With an alcohol addiction, you get to blow past zero entirely. You not only can heal from it, you can be catapulted into a much healthier way of living, meaning you're overall stronger than when you first fell into an alcohol addiction. Again, own it. You're going through an intense chapter of growth, one where you'll emerge with more depth and understanding of yourself and others when you hit the other side. It could be said it's a gift, even though right now you may be viewing it as a moldy banana. So addiction will punch you in the mouth, take your credit cards and phone charger, then a couple years later, we'll show up at your door with donuts and a graduation cap. What you're struggling with has the potential to heal you in a massive way. An alcohol addiction will kick your ass, break you wide open, and then fill you back up with something better. A heart attack won't do that. So own it, accept it. Be glad this burden was gifted to you. Now, we don't always see it this way. You may be listening while you're on your 50th day one and you're cursing out this podcast host, and that's okay. But be patient, trust the process, own it, befriend it. And with the word alcoholic, we're so afraid of what other people think of us. Part of the healing built into an alcohol addiction is you care less of what others think about you. Call me an alcoholic. I don't care. We've turned our struggle into our greatest strength. Not many get to do that with their problems. And before we hear from Amy, I want to mention this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you've been listening to the RE podcast for some time, you've heard of BetterHelp. This is an online therapy platform that we fully believe in, and that's why we've been working with them for over 4 years. But don't take my word for it. They've got over 1.7 million client session reviews, with a session rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars. Incredible. The feedback from people who have actually used the service speaks for itself. And did you know that more than 6 million people have used BetterHelp globally? And the BetterHelp therapists have at least 3 years and 1,000 hours of hands-on experience. BetterHelp makes it easy to get started, answer a few questions, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, and also you can switch at any time if it's not the right fit. See the reviews, see what stands out, and see if BetterHelp is right for you. Visit betterhelp.com/elevator. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/elevator. Amy, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Amy, let's get right into this. When was your last drink?
So last drink was May 25th of this year, so 2026.
Congratulations on 31 days alcohol free. Amy, that's so rad. How do you feel?
I'm feeling good.
Well, we chatted a bit before we hit record. You had a year away from alcohol in 2019. We'll get to all that stuff. Before we do, Amy, give listeners some background about yourself. This is where you're calling in from, your age, maybe what your job looks like, your professional life or your family life. And then most importantly, Amy, what do you like to do for fun?
I am 43 years old and I am currently living in Santa Ynez, California. I have a family of four, so kind of a wide range of kids. I have a 24-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. Also have a horse, chickens, dogs, and cats. And most recently, wanting to get into beekeeping. So background is a healthcare professional. So was a nurse for many years, but now I stay home and love hiking, love spending time with my family. That's where I spend most of my time. It's just catering to kind of the family's needs. And that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, that's a super full house and a lot of questions I want to ask, but talk to me about the bees. What's the interest there?
I've just had this like calling of like we have a little bit of land and they're such an amazing species and I don't know a lot about them, only some of the movies that I've watched, but they're so helpful for the environment and our food source.
There's a lot of ecological systems on the precipice of collapse, and
Yeah.
owning and keeping bees, it's one of those insects that holds it all together. Bees are one of those things, like if they go, so many things collapse. I want to keep this podcast positive, but if there's a chance to plug, hey, if you got some extra space and don't mind
Yeah.
a bee sting or two, and you want to do some heavy lifting for the environment, for the world, for the climate, and for the plants in your yard, bees are a great move. Do you think you're going to do it?
Save the bees, save the world. No, I'm in the process. I just reached out. I have like a bee mentor coming and talking all things hives and getting it going. So I joined a
Okay.
bee club. So I'm doing it.
All right. If you're in bee club and you got a mentor coming, you're far down this further than we think. And your chickens give you eggs, which is awesome. But bees, you're probably going to get honey, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah.
It
And
takes about a year. So I did learn that. It takes about a year. So,
till you can
but
get honey.
yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. I need to start looking into bees. I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you with your story with alcohol. I'm going to jump in with questions.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I grew up with two super addicted parents. My mom actually ended up going into a treatment program when I was about 6 years old. She ended up going into like a recovery treatment program for about a year. And during that time, my brother and I were living in like foster care as well as my grandparents. So I have seen the dark sides of addiction since I was a child. It was pretty nasty. And so I think I always had this like storyline in my mind of I'm never going to be like that. They were my biggest teachers because it was like taking addiction to this extreme of not being able to take care of your kids. So in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. So what was interesting about early childhood is that I grew up going to NA and AA meetings. Like that was kind of like my church. My mom was going to these meetings and she and my stepdad, she met my stepdad at the time. So we would spend a lot of times as children in these meetings. So, I was like, keep coming back. It works if you work it. Like I was a kid sitting in on these meetings, hearing these crazy trauma stories about people's addictions. And it was truly kind of traumatizing as a kid to hear all that information. And at the same time, it was also kind of beautiful because my mom was sober. So, like, kind of holding space for both those truths of like being so grateful that my mom's no longer drinking or using drugs, but also like this is a really overwhelming kind of space to be in as a kid.
How's your mom now?
She struggles with another addiction. She swapped kind of alcohol and now is addicted to opiates, sadly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. But she did have 10 years of sobriety.
Awesome.
So that's not nothing. And that was, I think, truthfully, is like a really important part of my journey of knowing that that's possible and like observing a life without people that are not drinking. I was 14 when I did start drinking. And I think what kind of pulled me into it was like a lot of social anxiety. And I'm from the Midwest, so drinking was like a really significant part of the culture. I was thinking back to it, and I remember in ninth grade, there was this thing called kidnapping, where the kids from the high school would befriend like the younger kids, and then they would take them and go get drunk in like the cornfields and then have them do all these crazy things. That was part of the culture, that was considered normal. So growing up, binge drinking, I think, was like the most common way of in which I was relating to alcohol.
During that period of kidnapping, that's a interesting concept there.
Yeah, it was.
When you were binge drinking in high school, was there the thought like, hey, my mom was in rehab for a whole year when I was age 6. We were in foster care, living with grandparents. Like, this might happen to me.
No, because in my mind, I was never going to be like that. That would
Okay.
never happen to me. It was such a strong belief of I'm doing this differently.
Did you get kidnapped?
Yes, I got kidnapped and was given all the alcohol and was a teenager and was, drunk in a field. Anyway, my mom was sober for about 10 years. And then I started kind of drinking, but then there was like some kind of underlying, some toxic family stuff happening, mainly with the relationship with my stepdad. He just was kind of not a great guy. So as a teenager, I was like pulling away from that. I was like trying to kind of get out of my house. And I ended up living on my own at about 16, getting kind of kicked out of my house and living on my own. And at that time, my mom started drinking again. So she wasn't in like a position to hold space for the kind of the trauma that was going on in the house. And that was really hard for me because it was like I needed my mom to be there for me because my stepdad was doing these terrible things and my mom wasn't there for me. So I ended up going out and being on my own. And at that time, I was like living at friends' houses, sleeping on people's couches. I started dating an older guy. Like I just didn't have a strong support. So I started experimenting with drugs, continuing to drink alcohol. And then I got pregnant really young. I was pregnant at 17. And then it was like a lot of time by myself and not drinking. At this time, I'm not drinking, but I'm really lonely, like a really lonely kid because I didn't have my parents. It was just kind of like a mess of a situation. But after that, I decided to be a parent and I put myself into school and I went to nursing school and I worked really hard and I was told a lot that you can't do it or like your life's going to be crap. But I think part of one of my superpowers was like really proving people wrong. Like I'm going to prove you wrong by not turning out like you. I'm going to prove you wrong by being able to graduate college and be a single parent. I'm going to just do all the things that everybody said that I couldn't. But during this time, I was really lonely and I became close friends with a friend of mine's stepmother, and she was a wine drinker. And for the first time, I was like, oh, you make wine seem like sophisticated and cool. Like your drinking's really different than my parents' drinking or what I saw growing up. And it was romanticized. And I was like, oh, people can drink and it be totally normal about it, is kind of how it looked in my mind. So I started drinking wine. I was spending time with her. She had a child and I had a child, and we'd put our kids together and we'd split a bottle of wine. So that started becoming the habit.
And Amy, prior to this, had alcohol been an issue? Were you struggling with it? And also, were you in like your early 20s
Yes,
at this
early
time?
20s.
Okay.
Yeah, early 20s, started drinking wine and also binge drinking. And yes, again, I didn't think it was a problem because it wasn't as bad as my parents, right? But I did, when I was 20, I got a DUI, my first and only DUI.
Okay.
And I look back on that and honestly, thank God I got it because that was kind of the guardrails I needed to be like, oh, well, that's super stupid and dangerous. And then you have to go through like a whole program and you hear about people's stories about awful situations of drinking and driving. When that happened, it wasn't like I'm not going to drink again. It was like, I'm not going to drink and drive again. It was so alarming for me. And truly, I really stuck to that mostly. But every once in a while, there was a night where I was like, shouldn't have done that. But mostly that really scared the shit out of me. So then I ended up meeting my husband, and he's an amazing human. And he was not my daughter's biological father, but he just was just an awesome guy. And, he was also a wine drinker. And we're drinking wine together. At that time, it really was mostly weekends, and the binge drinking had kind of slowed down, but it was like, oh, we're going to share a bottle over the weekends or something like that. Again, not thinking much of it. I moved from Nebraska to Chicago. We moved in together, and then we started kind of drinking more there in the winter time. It was like a pretty rough winter, and we were drinking more regularly, not thinking much of it, just like I'm drinking wine and I'm a sophisticated drinker. That was really the story. Then we moved to California and we got married, and then we had 2 kids back to back. So there was like, again, periods of no drinking. So then I was very sober because I was pregnant back to back. And that was around the time I started kind of like realize I was drinking out of stress because I had these kids at home. I had a kid in middle school, and it was like, okay, it's 5 o'clock and I'm excited to have that drink. And that's when I started kind of recognizing, whoa, my thinking around alcohol had shifted to like, I'm not like my parents, I'm not going to be like them, to like, oh, like this is interesting. I am wanting this drink every night now at 5 o'clock, and then not liking myself because of that. Not liking that I was like needing something to like get through a hard day.
Was there action after that? Like, hey, let's start taking some nights off. And I think what you discussed is the beginning of the shame cycle.
Yeah, I would take days off and then drink again. Like, I'm going to save my binge drinking for once or twice a month, right? I'm going to allow myself to do it, but I'm going to save it. You only get 2 binge drinking sessions. And that, like, I look back and I'm like, that should have been an alarming sign. So then there was another move. We moved from California and then we moved to Washington. And honestly, that is when I think things really turned a corner of like, okay, this is getting rough. And it was another move. My husband was working a lot, and I got pregnant again, and I ended up having my 4th kid. And I was so overwhelmed, and I had such bad postpartum. And I told my husband, I was like, I really need some help. And we hired an au pair, and I was asking for help. But then when she came to like work for our family, I had all this guilt, like, oh my God, I can't even take care of my kids. Like, this is my one job. I have to have help doing this one thing. Like, I had a lot of shame and guilt around that. And I was like, I need to go back to work. So I'm doing something. I need to be doing more than what I'm doing. There's a lot of dialogue. I'm not doing enough. So I went back to work, and I ended up working with a group of people that were drinking pretty heavily. And
Is this back to nursing?
yeah, back to nursing. Then I met a group of people, and we would go out Friday, like we'd go out after work, and I had this au pair, so I had childcare coverage, right? So for me, there wasn't a lot of accountability. Like, I could drink and I could overdo it, and then I had the support that I needed. So I was like, wow, this is great. And at the time, I had met this other mom, and she had access to cocaine. So I was like, well, this is fantastic. I had done drugs before, but like on and off. But like now I had this access to this drug, and the kids would be put to bed, and I could do cocaine and drink, and I could clean my house. Then I'm enough, right? Like, my house can be clean, and I can do a really good job, and I can be this mom that I'm in my mind that I want to be or supposed to be. But then clearly felt like so tiny, because I was like, now look at me. I've got this beautiful family, and I'm sneaking cocaine and I'm drinking more wine. Like, what's happened? Like, what's going on? And I had a real close girlfriend fly out and visit me, and she kind of saw the little situation that I was in.
Did she see it, observe it, or did you open up about it to her?
She's observed it because I asked her to like participate with me.
Okay.
And then we had a deep conversation about it that night. And she's like, listen, I'm going to Peru, and I'm going to do this plant journey, and I really think you should come with me. I think it would really benefit you.
Would that be ayahuasca?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. So But then I was like, how the hell am I going to leave like my family? My husband's working all the time. And so I went to my close friends, our au pair, and then another good friend of mine. And she's like, you go, we'll take care of the kids. Like you go. So I had this like team of women knowing that I like was needing some healing and like really worked together to like take care of my kids so I could go to Peru. That was in 2017. So I think I was 34 at the time. So I go and I have this transformative experience. It was like 10 years of like therapy in 4 days is what it was. And I came home from that though, and then I was like, well, now what? Like, how do I integrate all this information, recognizing I kind of made this life that I really wanted to change? I don't want this version of myself. So it kind of fast tracked that. So for that, I'm grateful. That said, it was a lot to integrate and I didn't have tools because that was the realization. I didn't have tools. I didn't have tools to deal with this early childhood trauma that was super brutal. I didn't have tools to deal with all these kind of different stories that I had been telling myself for years. So when I came back from Peru is when I really started to put together some tools.
And it sounds like right after that, well, in 2017, 2019, you went a year without alcohol.
Yes,
So something stuck and caused you
totally.
to make a pretty big change. And I also want to get to the 31 days away from alcohol. You're doing great.
Yeah, came home after that, like started doing some things different in my life. Took a year off, reached out to a couple friends and was like, what do you guys think? Would you be willing to take a year off? They said, yeah, absolutely. So we did that. And then I think like kind of since that Peru time, it's been this 9 years of experimenting with moderation realistically. And within this time period, I took that year off and then I reached back out to my group of girlfriends and then I was like, hey, I started drinking again, but I really want to see if I can moderate. But by moderation, what I wanted to do was only having one drink because that's like medically what moderation was is it's like you're moderating if you have one drink. And so they agreed and we're like, let's do this. Let's try this new thing, 1 year, one beer, and see if we can only have one drink when we're together. And we did that. And I don't know, it was only a few months. And then it was like one social event later, and then there was a binge drinking session. And I was like, well, holy moly, so much more difficult to do this 1 year, one drink thing than it is to just not drink. So that was really helpful information to have.
Amy, can you unpack what you just said there? Because it was a big step forward in my own journey when I realized, all right, it's easier to not drink at all than it is to moderate. And you just said the same thing. What was that like for you when you reached that conclusion?
It was like an aha moment, but it was also a little frustrating, especially being a
Yeah.
person that's wanting to prove everyone wrong. So I was kind of going through some turmoil with it. Like I'm not as right as I thought I was, right? Like I'm having a really hard time doing this thing that I thought that I could do.
And then Amy, through this process, through recognizing the moderation, it's probably not going to work out the way you want it to. Did the thought of your mom come in your consciousness of like, oh, wait a second, I said I'd never be like this person, but I might be going down that path?
No, because I was still doing all these other things on the side. I started meditation, I started yoga. I was trying to like build these other things, which in hindsight, like I realized I was kind of putting these things in place for this moment right now. For the moment when I said, okay, I'm now done. So now I have all these things that I've been putting in place that I'm going to be able to rely on so I can be successful in not drinking anymore.
Can I shine the flashlight on what you just said? It's brilliant. You almost quit drinking before you quit drinking, is in put those
Mhm.
tools in place like yoga, spiritual practices,
Yeah.
community. And that's how a lot of people do it. And listeners, if you're like, all right, I'm going to quit drinking day one, and then I'm going to go and figure this stuff out, can be done, has been done, but you can almost quit drinking before you quit drinking and get all that stuff lined up in place and give yourself a better chance of success. Yeah, what happens next, Amy? You're doing awesome.
We had another move in there and we moved to Santa Ynez, and Santa Ynez is wine country. And my husband, like his dream was to own a winery. So I said, how about if you do this winery, like how do you feel about doing an alcohol-free wine?
Huh.
We can cater to both people. Like we can cater to people that are drinking and then we can also support non-drinkers.
Did he know why you were prompting that?
Yeah, he knew. I've been pretty honest with him about how I feel about alcohol and addiction, and it's a really different narrative than his. He didn't have this like family trauma from addiction that I did. So he doesn't think about it in the same way. And he is better at moderating, but he also binge drinks. So like now that I'm not drinking, we're kind of having some of those conversations. Like, what does that look like?
Did he
But
buy a winery?
so we bought a property with land, but after being here and realizing that wine sales are tanking, probably not a good investment. So
Yeah, bees are the way to go.
bees it is.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right. So 31 days ago, was there a rock bottom? What happened
You
then?
know, I saw someone was following someone on social media, and it was like, I don't need my life to fall apart to like know that this is just not the path for me. And I think that that's kind of how it feels for me. I don't need that. I don't need a rock bottom to know that, okay, I'm actually done and I want a better life and I want to live more authentically. Like here I am saying like, oh, let's be healthy and trying to be the healthiest version of myself and do all these things like doing yoga, and I'm really into hiking and outdoor stuff. And then it kind of feels like that all goes down the pipe like the minute I'm like, oh, now I'm going to have a couple drinks. And I think what did happen in May was I did realize we live in a community where there's so much socializing, and every social event, there's alcohol. It's wine owners. There's alcohol all over the place. So it's really in your face. And it's like, okay, well, we have this social event. And I was like, you call it playing the tape forward, which I think is so, I love it. And I was like realizing, oh my God, I'm drinking this event and this event and this event. And it finally was like, I just got to stop. Like, I am just done. So I realized at the end of May, it was like there was a graduation, there was a going away party, there was this other event and another event. There was like 5 events that I was like, I had stopped. So I was like, I'm just not drinking at those events. And when I went to those events, I was like, if I was drinking tonight, I probably would have ended up having 5 drinks. And then if I would have drank at that other event, maybe I would have had three, maybe I would have had five. Okay, well, that's 10 drinks in a week. That's not moderation. That's totally too much. I don't sleep well. My discipline goes right down the drain. You start to notice these things when you're paying attention. And I was like, I'm done. This is it. So here I am. And then
Yeah. Give
I
me.
looked up your show, of course. I had quit before in the past for a year and was like, I knew the tools. So I was like, I'm going to try to find a podcast because that has helped me in the past. And I found your podcast and I love it so much. Like it's people's storytelling and then it really ends in a really positive place. Like, where do we go from here? I feel like it's grounded in positivity. And when I was a kid and went to AA meetings, I didn't necessarily have that experience. I have had that with your podcast. So thanks for doing this work.
Thank you for listening and thank you for the kind words. Thank you for commenting on playing the tape forward. I wish I could claim that as mine. It's not. And with that, you can't think yourself out of a drink, listeners, but that is a concept. You've got so much data in the past to know like what's going to happen if you do drink. That's one way you can use the brain to get some good data from the past to apply to the future. There's a big paradox in the world of recovery, and one of them is control. Like, admitted we are powerless at step one, and there's a loss of control. Yes, there is, but also at the same time, there's not. And the 12-step world recognizes this also. So you were like, I'm done with this. I cannot do this anymore. And with the rooms of the 12 steps, they say you can put the shovel down at any time, right? When you played the tape forward, you probably saw like, oh, I know where this is going to go. And badass move for you. You had 5 events in May. Most people, my hand just went up, would be like, quit date after these 5 events. But nope, you're like, you know what? I got 5 events. I'm going to get it going right now. And you did. And I think that's rad. You discovered a podcast. I'm glad you're with us. And there's so many great recovery podcasts out there these days. And the magic of this, what you're doing, Amy, is you're telling a story. This is how humans have evolved and learned and stayed alive for millions of years, really. And the challenges we're facing these days, it's not a saber-toothed tiger. It's not a colossal flood or environmental things, but you get it. It's not animals that are eating us. It's a chemical that's quite dangerous and potent. And you're sharing a powerful story of how you overcome it. And so in this last 31 days, Amy, was there a thought of like, it wasn't that bad? You didn't have a problem.
Honestly, that is what has been like so eye-opening. I was like, man, maybe this was a little worse than I thought, because the realization of noticing those thoughts of like, oh, you've had your few weeks off, it's fine to go back. Those have been more frequent than I was expecting. So yeah, definitely having those thoughts.
Yeah. And awareness is building. You can see those thoughts from a different perspective within your consciousness. And I think That is a holy grail that an addiction tries to get us. You're not your thoughts. You're the one observing the thoughts. And Amy,
Mm.
you just hit something huge. You became aware of those thoughts. Like, whoa, this is an issue. Instead of being the thoughts, now I'm drinking. And listeners, I just want to highlight that for Amy. And maybe you're there as well. You're recognizing the thoughts going, wow, I don't think it's me, but something wants a drink badly. That's the split from you and the ego, you and the thinking mind. It's so beautiful. Amy, what changes have you noticed in these last 31 days? Maybe physically, maybe mentally, maybe spiritually.
I have said like I wanted to do bees for 2 years and I haven't done bees. And so I was like, I'm doing bees. I'm doing the thing that I said I was gonna do and I haven't been doing it. So I'm doing it. So, that's something new. I've been on Reframe. That's like a helpful tool as well. And that kind of helps just kind of tell you how your body's healing. And just like knowing that my body is healing is really helpful for me. Another one was my Aura Ring. My Aura Ring kept telling me that I wasn't resilient, like I wasn't sleeping well, or my heart rate variability from having had drinks, whether it was, there's times that it was just one drink, but it was still impacting my sleep. And then my resilience score on my Aura Ring was really low. And since I have not been drinking, my resilience score is up. So I'm like, oh, wow, clearly I am way more resilient without this substance. So
I've heard that so many times where those rings, like the fitness apps and stuff, you can track real-time data in pre and
yeah,
post alcohol. People are like, whoa, my sleep was shitty. I was
totally.
having basically AFibs. It's well known that alcohol can mess with the cadence of your heart. Even small quantities, it's ridiculous. Amy, is there a higher power? Is there a faith here? Is there a God? Is there a Jesus that has helped you out?
Well, I have heard it referred to as Gus, Great Universal Spirit. That really speaks to me. Having had a plant journey, I think I had just the understanding of the connection of like we're all connected. So, I mean, I don't know whether we call it God or Great Universal Spirit or universe or higher self, but I definitely am a believer of something way, way bigger that connects us all, that like brings us all together.
And you mentioned plant medicine, ayahuasca in Peru. I have been very open about my journey with plant medicine. I've used ayahuasca. And during a ceremony, and I walked outside in the middle of the night. It was in the jungle in Costa Rica, and there was trees everywhere in the jungle. But there was one tree where electrical currents were firing in and out of it. These are bright blue, magenta, violets, yellows, greens, shooting into the solar system, like into the infinite. Only one tree. And all the other trees, and there's probably 50, 60 different species of trees. I don't know, but only one tree. And so the next day I went up to that tree, took my, I think my phone out, like an app, took a photo of it, and it ended up being, what kind of tree do you think it was, Amy?
Is it a Saba?
The ceiba. Yeah.
I love that
So
story.
I don't know what it was doing, but myself, in my experience, I saw, wow, it's doing something. It's also called the kapok tree or the silk cotton tree. It's there at Angkor Wat in downtown Hanoi, Vietnam. That's the tree that lines the streets. It's an incredible tree. It is. And just as you have found an interest towards bees, and I love trees now, I've planted several cebas. In fact, I was driving in Costa Rica and a massive tree fell down, and that what was caught in the root system was like a 12-foot ceiba. And I knew what I had to do. As another buddy who was in Cafe RE with me, we went back home, got a shovel. We went back and dug the ceiba up, brought it back, and it didn't die. We planted it at another property in Costa Rica, and I go back and visit it. And I get photos sent. I'm like, hey, send me a photo of that ceiba. And now it's like 15 feet high.
So I can plant a Saba? Like, do they do well in outside of
Great
in this
question.
place?
I've never seen a
Yeah.
ceiba in America.
Okay.
It's the climate thing. But I did
Needs
figure
good
out,
water.
I got a ceiba seed pod and I germinated a couple seeds. I actually got them to germinate. It's just like a whole new hobby, which sobriety opens up. And Amy, where do you think your life is going to go? Any new hobbies besides bees? You got to keep us updated there. Like, what's on your bucket list without alcohol?
Honestly, I think it's just again having had some of these tools in place, I think it's consistency. I have went deep into meditation and it does a lot for my heart and my spirit self. Journaling and writing and just being present, not drinking. I am present. When I'm drinking, it's really that goes out the door. So living authentically of these things that I've found, these tools that I've found along the way and really leaning into them, the only way is not drinking for me. That's it. That's the truth.
What does
Um,
your journaling practice look like? Is it a Word doc? Is it pen to paper? Is it every morning, every night?
Both, although recently I had someone who given me the artist way. So I've been doing that. I've been journaling every morning. I've been doing that for the last 30 days, 31 days. Whereas typically I would journal and then I wouldn't touch it for a week. And I think being alcohol free brings a consistency that is really important.
And then meditating, what does that look like for you?
Meditating, I kind of also found after Peru, and I did a Vipassana retreat. That was really powerful. After I left that, I was like, I'm going to meditate an hour every day. That did not happen.
Vipassana listeners, that's like a big time silent meditation retreat, multi-day. How long was yours?
It was 10 days.
Ooh, I did a
Yeah.
6 day and it blew my mind. 10
It's,
days.
yeah, it is mind blowing.
Ah, and where in Peru did you drink ayahuasca?
Sacred Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sacred Valley, right outside of Cusco. Sacred Valley is incredible.
Beautiful, incredible place.
Yeah,
Really
I
is.
will. I will return there.
Spiritual epicenter.
Yeah, the Sacred Valley is almost like Sedona, and I've been to Sedona.
Sedona.
Yeah, like that's their spiritual hub. Sedona is ours, and those two are like two spiritual epicenters. They're energetic vortexes is what they are. Just a lot of energy
Yeah.
comes in, passes through those areas. Incredible. All right, well, Amy, we have reached the rapid fire round. If you can answer these questions in 5 to 10 seconds, that would be great. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, what's the one thing you've learned about yourself since quitting drinking?
That I'm fun without it.
What's your favorite alcohol-free drink?
Tea and coffee.
What kind of bees are you thinking about getting?
Honeybees, but I'm not sure.
What's your favorite musical genre?
Gosh, I like them all. I mean, I've been really into 90s, so Alanis Morissette, Counting Crows, revisiting that stage of my life, but not necessarily a favorite one. I just like music.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Something non-dairy.
And then what parting piece of guidance can you give to someone who wants to quit drinking?
I wish I could coin this, but I can't, but I did see it and it stuck for me. So stop shrinking to make everyone else comfortable.
And then before we depart, Amy, you might need to ditch the booze if line. Let's hear it.
You might need to ditch the booze if you notice yourself buying lots of vitamins and extra things to feel better, but really it's not an addition thing, it's a subtraction.
I love it. I love it. And guys, we usually end the interview right now if you've been with us for a while, but there's one more question that just popped up, and that's, I imagine there was some resentments with your mom for a long time. How are you with that?
I didn't even share with you, my dad is an addict, and this year he was in an accident and he killed somebody, and now he's in prison.
Wow.
So it's a lot. It's a lot to process. I'm in therapy. I have all these things in to have like as support because it is when you have such a strong history of that significant of addiction, and leaning into forgiveness because seeing my own struggles and, starting to see more of the similarities instead of the differences within each other, like humans, I think is really powerful. But I'm also kind to myself because sometimes I can get like notice myself feeling resentful and like wanting to put these big boundaries in place. And so, some of that like kindness and love, I have to give it to myself first before I can give it to others. So there's a lot around that practice.
Thank you for sharing, Amy. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And thank you so much for being on the RE podcast. This flew by. It's going to help a lot of people. Thank you.
It did. And I so appreciate you and your work. And I'm so grateful that I was able to like actually just get this kind of out.
Yeah. And now it's the B chapter.
Yeah, the B chapter. And hopefully I'll make it to one of your vacations or I don't know exactly what they are, but they sound fun. And
Yeah, retreat, sober travel.
yeah,
We'd
retreat.
love to
Yeah,
have you, Amy, for sure.
I like it. All
All
right,
right.
Paul.
Thank you.
Take care.
I got an email from Amy after our interview, and she wanted to clarify a couple of things. She says, the relationship with my two parents, who are deeply affected by addiction, has been very challenging. While I never really saw myself as identical to them, that doesn't mean we didn't share many behaviors. I think the story I recognize about our parallel addiction journeys is that I don't believe my mom ever truly got sober for herself. She did it for us, and she always told me that. This is one reason, after 10 years clean and facing a very difficult home situation, she fell back into her addiction so quickly. My sobriety journey really began 10 years ago, around the same time I started my self-love journey. While learning to love myself, I realized I cannot do that and drink at the same time. I've tried for years and it didn't work. I've tried for years and it hasn't worked. I see similarities in my mom's journey and mine, and the differences continue to stand out more. Self-love acts as a catalyst for my sobriety. I'm choosing sobriety now because it's the most important step towards truly loving myself. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to thank Amy. I want to thank our production team for the episode. We've got our editor, Natasha, Robin on the show notes, and then Chris on the ones and twos.
Wiki.
Putting it all together. And I want to thank our sponsors. Recovery Elevator, you took the elevator down. You got to take the stairs back up. We can do this.
I see you, Savior, I see you, Savior, Almighty Savior, I see you, Savior, I see you, Savior, I see you, Savior, Almighty Savior, I see you, Savior.